Hello, everyone. My name is Aimee Kellen, and welcome to another episode of the Diary of a CMO. I am so excited to have my guest today. I was saying before we started recording that this is coming full circle for me, having the opportunity to talk to her as someone within management of this particular organization. Um, I like to. I've had the opportunity of working on the brands within this portfolio. I think this is the client I served the longest in my short career. And I'm so glad to have with me on the podcast today. She is a result oriented marketer with 16 years brand and consumer marketing experience. She's got a passion for luxury iconic brands. And you will tell from the conversations we'll start to have. She demonstrates strategic thinking ability that has allowed clear insights to drive sustainable brand growth. And I'm so excited to have on the board today, Aimee Kellen. Did I get that right?
Perfect.
You know, the funny thing is that before I hit record, I tend to try to pronounce the name before I hit record. For some reason, I didn't remember to do that just now when we were talking earlier. But I'm glad I got it right. How are you doing today, Aimee?
I'm very well, thanks. And you?
I'm well, thank you. It's such a pleasure to have you on. It's such a pleasure to have you on. I'm looking at your backdrop with the canvas. Is that your plan for global dominance?
No, actually, I'm very passionate about working in Africa, and yeah, actually sharing Africa with the world.
That's exciting. That's really exciting. For those who are meeting you for the first time, I'd like you to please introduce yourself to them.
Sure, I'm Aimee Kellen, and I'm the Regional Marketing Director for Middle East and Africa for Moët Hennessy.
Fantastic. I have just to give us a snapshot of your diary in that sense. What is a typical day like for you at the office?
Gosh, it can vary, it can go from 13 to 14, 30-minute back-to-back calls to a trip to Paris, a trip to Lagos. So it's very varied. No week is the same, but it's always very, very interesting. And I think it's always with really exciting people on great topics. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. It's a big mixture. I can go from a topic around Belvedere, Morocco, and then I'll be in Lagos on Hennessy, and I really move around from geography to brand. But it's always very exciting.
Interesting. So with your role, you oversee all of the brands within the portfolio.
Exactly. So I work with a great team across the region. So I have a regional team in South Africa, but then we also have our brand and marketing teams all across the region, and we all work together to drive the brands.
Fantastic. I think congratulations is still in order because I know that, I'm judging by your LinkedIn profile, you assumed this role last year. So congratulations, Aimee. I'm really, really excited.
That's very kind. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Yeah. So stepping into this role, which is my first question, my official first question in that sense. Stepping into this role, what would you say is your playbook in terms of succeeding in this role and taking these already incredible brands to new heights?
I think you've said one of the key things. I think realizing that these brands have come hundreds of years before us and they'll live hundreds of years beyond us. And I think that's critical as part of the playbook is being humble and realizing that while you're in the position to curate the brands, you also need to nurture, the chapter with which you're part of. So I think for me, that's very important, and it's something I was taught many, many years ago. And advice I'd give to future brand managers is, be mindful of the chapter that you curate the brand for within your respective market or brand, and think about what chapter you'd like to add, for the time that you are the custodian of the brands within your respective geography. I think what's also critical is to be curious and to be open, and to connect with other people. I really, really believe that connecting with people allows you to collaborate in meaningful ways and create things that, move people and excite people. So I think, yeah, really being curious to understand, curious to discover, not making assumptions that, what has been before will be, thereafter, but really being open and to learning and connecting with those around you. And then I think, the other ingredient that I really believe in that's fundamental to my playbook is making sure you build the right team around you and making sure you nurture that team, whether it, be your immediate team or your agency partners that you work with. We work in a multi-geography environment, so making sure you spend time with the people we work with, traveling to markets. I think that's critical.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I always like to dial it back, to um, little Aimee, or depending, little insert first name, in terms of, what growing up was like. I, sometimes and I use my career as an example, when I listen or watch podcasts, I mean, some few years ago, people you watch or listen to would appear so far away,
Mm.
so this is my attempt to try to get the audience to understand that you are also a human being and you have a background, you have got a family, you get what I mean. So what was growing up like for you, from a family standpoint? What are some of your fondest childhood memories and stuff like that? What was little Aimee's dream?
Sure, that's a big question. So I actually I grew up in Spain. So I was born in South Africa, and then I moved to Spain, and I spent my formative years growing up in Marbella in the south of Spain. So 10 years of my life was in Spain. So hablo español, and as a result, so I can speak Spanish. And one of the things I think, that shaped me is that I feel, I came back to South Africa, finished high school and university here, but as a result, I've always felt, half European, half African, I guess, because I am South African, but I spent a lot of my formative years in Europe. And I think what it taught me as well was the ability to adapt, so moving back, in your teenage years, once you've established your friendships and kind of having to land back somewhere that you don't know, that's unfamiliar to you, because I left when I was 4 and I came back when I was 14. It teaches you to adapt and to navigate in new environments and reestablish yourself and, refine a circle of friends. And I think that experience also sort of created a sense of curiosity in me, and I think that's something that has always been something I'm passionate about. I love discovering new cultures, meeting new people, and learning around how people, live their lives, I guess. And I think that's helped me to integrate back into South Africa. And yeah, I think that's something that has really shaped my trajectory, I would say.
Interesting. That sounds really exciting, to be honest. I
Hmm.
think one of the things I'd like to do is live in different cities at different times in my life. I haven't gotten to do that yet. I hope I do that at some point, but
Yeah.
oh
Yeah,
man,
it's fascinating. I actually had an opportunity last year as well to spend a few months in Belgium.
interesting.
And to your point, it does. It opens your mind, it gives you
Yeah,
exposure to different things, and it's great. I'd highly recommend it if you have the opportunity to do so. And usually it
fantastic.
makes you really appreciate when you come back just how many
Uh,
things you love about, where you're from.
right, I completely agree. It appears like you've been very. It appears like you've always been clear about what you wanted to spend your life doing professionally. In terms of marketing, because, I think that's what you studied in school. That's what you're doing right now. Tell me, how did you get into marketing, or was this always the dream?
Gosh, it's interesting when you say it like that, and it seems like it was so simple, but it actually wasn't, and I think it's something that I always try and share with people when I have the opportunity to, because actually when I was at university, I was, signed up to study business science with marketing specialization. But when I started, a few lecturers started asking me, "Are you sure you don't want to do the finance route? Are you sure you don't want to be a chartered accountant?" And I'd sort of signed up for marketing thinking it was a great balance between science and art, where, there
Mm,
is a bit of magic, there's a bit of people, but it's still in the business world. And that was really what drew me to marketing. But then I was actually challenged, because finance was the safe route and you can become an accountant and you can work for one of the big four. And why do you want to do marketing? There's not as many jobs and. Yeah, I think that was my first experience of learning to trust my intuition and trust my gut. And yeah, so it wasn't always a straight line, but I decided to stick with what I thought was right. Again, after a lot of debate and challenge, and I'm really happy I did because marketing really has allowed me to do exactly that. Blend art and science, which is something I really enjoy.
interesting. Do you mind if we kind of delve into that a little bit? This conversation about marketing as an art and a science, and if you could,
Yeah.
maybe even kind of share some sort of like a case in point. Do you know what I mean? Like when you say it's like an intersection between art and science, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, of course. I think marketing, and especially nowadays, we have so much data, but in luxury goods marketing, and when I talk about luxury, our brand positioning was defined for us many years ago. Our founders founded the vision for our brands, and it's as marketers, our role is not to redefine the positioning of the brands every year. It's quite the opposite, actually. It's to make sure we keep the positioning or the vision of our founders alive, but make it relevant to the world in which we find ourselves today. So Madame Clicquot, if I give you the example of Madame Clicquot who was the woman who took over Veuve Clicquot many years ago when she found herself widowed. She had an audacious personality. She was innovative. She was a pioneer. She developed some of the firsts in the Champagne region, and as a result, is called Le Grand Dame of Champagne. But my job is not to reinvent what she wanted for the brand every year, but rather to keep that spirit alive. And so where I say it's an art and a science, it's, we have to use data, we have to use numbers, and that's the science part to make sure that our ideas convert to successful business performance. But at the same time, there has to be a level of art, which is the magic, which is the vision, which is the passion, which is, personality. And we have to bring that to the equation. And I think that's something we believe for all our brands. And I think that's what's really interesting. There's no one way, and
Yeah,
we have to dig deep, and we have to collaborate, and we have to work with brilliant minds, and we have to get inspired by others, and then we have to connect the two, and make sure that what we're doing obviously drives strong business performance, but is also still grounded in the magic of what our brand's founders had envisioned for them.
let me just let you know, FYI, I'm a marketing. I I love marketing. So you know what I mean? Like
Mm,
I it makes me happy. I'm
me
sorry.
too.
So you know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like and I'm saying that as a premise to what I'm about to say now in terms of the way you just explained marketing as an art and a science. I have had that conversation, as you can imagine, with a number of
Mhm,
guests, a number of people. But I dare say the way you've explained it, especially within the context of what you do, I think I think it's brilliant. I think it's really spot on. I like that you which is where my heart is in terms of when you talk about marketing as a driver of business performance,
mm,
yet not losing, that sort of magic and, persona and that,
mm.
so thank you for that 2 3 minutes, sort of master class in terms of marketing as a
Ah.
science. Yeah, I was going to ask you as well. It's been what 13 years in wines and spirits.
Yeah,
One would say, um, what's why?
it's a beautiful, beautiful industry, I have to say, and it's beautiful because we work with nature and we work with people. And I think that's something I personally have loved. I don't know if you've ever been to Champagne or to Cognac
No, I haven't.
before.
I have been to Paris, but I haven't been to any of those
Okay,
places.
and next time
I hold a
we'll have to
grudge.
arrange.
By the way, I hold a grudge if by any chance they're listening to this, I hold a grudge with every marketing manager I have worked with on Moët Hennessy. I hold a grudge with them because none of them ever offered to take me to cognac, even though we did remarkable work for those brands in the region at the time. But it's not. I think it's okay. It's okay. It's fine. Water under the bridge, no problem.
Let's,
Just
well,
carry on.
next time you're in Paris, let us know because it's, an hour away, Champagne. And I think, just to stand in those vineyards, it's pretty remarkable. It's something really special, and I think that's what I love. It's we're working with nature, and we create something so magical that then brings people together. We often talk at Moët Hennessy that it's about from nature to communities, and our products come from the land. We can't just turn on the taps and produce more, And I think that's something that I really enjoy, and the incredible craftsmanship that's involved, and the passion, and the generations of experience, what we call savoir-faire as well. It's the transmission of a craftsmanship that gets passed down generation by generation. And that's something still to this day, when I arrive at the maison, if I go to Moet or Veuve Clicquot, it's still incredible to hear the stories being told and to see the hospitality and the savoir-faire that they offer. And I think that's something I really, really love. It's there is a connection or a opportunity to connect human to human through a combined passion that is what I love, So you can go anywhere. I can be in Lagos having dinner with a group of people I've never met, but we can connect by talking about experiences and stories of our time with Hennessy. Or I can be in Dubai and talking about Moët, and we can talk about a memory or a moment that we shared over a glass of Moët. And I think that's something that's very unique. And I've been fortunate to have incredible experiences and met incredible artists, as an example, just through our work, and an incredible businesswoman through Veuve Clicquot Bold, and incredible fashion designers that we've worked with for Moët. So I think the world is just so rich that we get to work with, and it's so stimulating because I get to always experience new people, new places with incredible brands. So that's kept me engaged in the industry, I would say.
I think if I had to pick, a category as well to sort of build like a long-term career in, it definitely would be wines and spirits. People who know me, who've worked with me as colleagues or as teammates, whatever, as
Hmm.
partners. I'm a wines and spirits guy as well in terms of like I truly really enjoyed working on those brands, working with those brands and the teams and everyone. I think as you said, there's a lot of memories, a lot of stories, even in my time working on these brands and the experiences and the collaboration and everything that came with it. So I do envy you that you have done this for 13 years. And I have no word, I have nothing to critique because I would have done the same if I had the opportunity to do what you do. I can imagine it must be really exciting to do what you do. So,
Yeah, no, it is. And I think what's particularly interesting is that challenge of, continuing to innovate whilst
right,
respecting the past, So there's
right,
this beautiful tension of respecting the past but looking to the future. And that,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely,
that keeps it interesting.
absolutely. Wow. Every time the conversation about Moët Hennessy brands come up, especially within the marketing space, I think one of the you cannot talk about these brands without talking about culture. You know,
Mm,
whether you mean culture from an academic standpoint or you mean culture from um, a different standpoint. My question to you is that how do you navigate that, especially again when you have to go across multiple markets and regions and cultural nuances and beliefs and values and languages and this and that.
mhm.
So how do you navigate that for your brands across all of these markets?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's definitely not something I do on my own. It's really a collaboration, and I think we work, across geographies. And as I said, we have, people within those markets that help us to drive that agenda. And I think, again, it goes back to that, balance between art and science. It's making sure we're connecting with the right people, we're using great consumer insights, we're navigating the world as it evolves and it changes. So I think there's multiple inputs, I would say, in terms of how we navigate that. We're obviously shaped by a global vision, a global ambition, and then we have to nuance it to our local markets, and making sure that we're relevant in our local markets is key. And I think, I'll give you an example of a program I'm very proud of that we've done over the last few years, which is called Hennessy in the Paint. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it was a
Yes, I am.
program. Are you? Okay, great. It was a program where we renovated basketball courts with different artists, and we used different artists in every market, and they each came with their own flair, their own, specificity, if I could say, or their own abilities and skills. But then we married that with what we were looking to achieve from a brand perspective. And Hennessy was, the spirit of the NBA. And it was a great way for us to almost create a beautiful stage, a beautiful canvas of these artists' work, and allow people to then enjoy the courts and the piece of art that now existed. And I think that was a really great way of connecting with people, because what then came from that piece of art, the activities that surrounded it, allowed us to tap into all different parts of culture, whether it's fashion or music, because this court became a stage, and we, revealed the art piece with a moment to celebrate that. And then in each market, we had a different activity to reveal it. So that would be an example, I think, of
Right.
really connecting to unique differences in different markets, because all the people that we worked with in each market was different, but the concept was the same throughout. Another
Mm.
example, I think, is a recent activity we did with Champagne Day, and it was incredible for me to see, which is where we hosted top talent in Epinay, actually, for Moet, and they had the opportunity to immerse themselves in the world of champagne and to be inspired by champagne, but then for us to be inspired by them as well. And they each created a beautiful piece in their own discipline. So if you're a fashion designer, they created a piece of fashion. We had a jewelry designer who created jewelry, and they created a piece in their craft but inspired by champagne. So that was also an incredible opportunity to collaborate with people from Morocco, Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, Ghana, and all of them were so different, but they also co-created, which is an amazing experience to see.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I think the conversation about how when you create these kinds of programs is always, especially when it takes a global scope, right?
Hmm.
Whether it's a program or a partnership like the LeBron James and Hennessy one.
Mm,
I think for me, in the back of my mind is always, sometimes maybe the complexity of, of driving relevance across multiple markets with this one global sort of
yep.
relationship or partnership. Can you talk to us a little about that, and in terms of that partnership and what the plans are, whether for the region, and also any other sort of like partnership of that nature that's really driving local relevance as well.
Yeah, so that was a very exciting partnership, and I think, two greats, right? So Hennessy collaborating with LeBron was just amazing, and I think shared similar values, similar ambitions, and so that's why it worked particularly well. And I think with our NBA partnership, it was really also about the off-court culture, and
Right,
celebrating that off-court culture
right,
as well. So it was very symbiotic, and I would say the global team did a great job on that, because it was very relevant across many markets. And I think that's
absolutely,
my job, our job, as a team, and in market and in region, is to make sure that we're implementing programs, if globally developed, that are relevant to our markets. So we don't just take what the global brand team develop and implement it. We make sure that we think it's relevant, and with the local marketing teams, we make decisions around which programs are relevant or not for their respective markets.
right, right. I think you were you there was I think it was one of your champagne brands and the work you're doing
Yeah.
with female entrepreneurs. I was just curious because I think that one of the challenges I've been given with the Diary of CMO is, I think it was at the close of last year, and has someone made a comment about bringing on more female marketing and business
Mm.
leaders. It was a call out and a challenge. Even though I mean personally, I haven't. My plan is to make sure that I represent the industry as much as possible, whether from a demographic standpoint or otherwise. So I'm always excited about the conversations that have to do with women, and I know that some of your brands do something within that space as
Mm.
well. I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a program I'm actually very proud of, and we've been growing it for a number of years now. It's called Bold, and essentially it's to, if I link back to what we spoke about earlier, it's to really celebrate Madame Clicquot. She was one of the world's first businesswomen, of her time. She was 27 when she took over the house. And at the time, businesswomen weren't even allowed to open a bank account, or women weren't allowed to open a bank account, let me say. So she really was pioneering. And this program came about actually in order to celebrate that, but to also inspire entrepreneurs. And we did some research. We did a study, and this barometer study actually revealed some really interesting insights for us, which is that women need people to look up to. They need people to be inspired by. And what they called entrepreneurs, so entrepreneurs that wanting to be entrepreneurs but are not yet, also women who wanted to be entrepreneurs needed to see successful entrepreneurs to give them that nudge, to give them that confidence. And of course, there's a lot of awards programs out there. And what we decided at Veuve Clicquot, and I was really fortunate to be part of the team for many years who were curating this program, we decided that we needed to celebrate women who were doing these hard things because it's hard, and I've personally been a judge for a few years and have listened to some of the courage and the incredible things these women have overcome, particularly in Africa. And we really believe that if we could find a way to support women as they rose, to give them visibility, to celebrate their rise, to give them encouragement, even sometimes it's as simple as that, it's just some encouragement from like minded women that could be really meaningful to them. And it was a way of celebrating Madame Clicquot's audacity and marrying that with, what we saw was needed in the world. So for me, it's a topic I'm really passionate about. In South Africa, we're in year 4 of the Bold Woman Awards, and we've had some phenomenal winners who have really gone on to enjoy the win, leverage the win, and it's helped them to get great visibility and to support their business to grow. And we're in year 2 in Nigeria. We had an incredible winner in Nigeria last year. I think she had the whole room in tears because she was just so moving what she's accomplished. And yeah, it's a program I'm really proud of because I have tangibly seen the impact it's had. So I would encourage anyone who's interested to apply and to enter. It will happen again in South Africa this year and in Nigeria, and I think it's critical that women get exposed. So it's a great platform for exposure because we give great PR and visibility to those that are shortlisted, and of course the winner. And the winner actually goes to Veuve Clicquot and has a vine planted in their name. So it's a really wonderful moment. But we also have, for those not entering, we have something called the Bold Open Database. And again, this is in the spirit of really helping give visibility to entrepreneurs. So open database, anyone can load their business into this database. And actually, if anyone's searching for a particular skill or need, they can search on this open database and these entrepreneurs and their businesses will come up. So I think that's another great tool that women can use. And it's been growing over the years. And again, really, really great to see so many women from Africa who've signed up. So if someone's looking for a caterer, they can search for a caterer. If someone's looking for a film producer or a photographer or a set designer, they can go and search if they're wanting to support female entrepreneurs.
Fantastic. What's the name of the platform again?
It's called Bold Open Database, the Veuve Clicquot Bold Open Database, where
Okay.
you can sign up. And then it's Bold
Okay.
Woman Awards, Veuve Clicquot's
Okay.
Bold Woman Awards, which you'll see some great press coverage when it goes live in respective markets.
Fantastic. I love the idea of the sort of like a directory. I love that
Yeah,
idea. And if there's a link that you can share, I'll just leave that in the description for
absolutely.
anyone
That would
who's
be great.
interested to really check it out. I think
That would be
um, that,
great.
that's definitely amazing. I have spoken openly um, in recent times about my about the work that I had the opportunity to do with the brand Jameson. So
Ah.
I just hold on, Aimee, hold on, Aimee, hold on, Aimee. Um, I and I think this was I had the opportunity of working on the brand for about 4 years or so.
Hmm.
And one of the things I like to say about the brand is, at least specifically for the Nigerian market, is
Hmm.
when they came in, the things that they did and how, very in a few years, the brand kind of grew and became what it is today, at
Hmm.
least in this market. And I cited that because the wines and spirit category, I think, besides the CSD category, I think is one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive, in the market. And I'm just curious to hear from you. What are your? I mean, as much as you can share, what are your what are your sort of like plans in terms of like really building? Again, I know that it's really challenging because of the stature of the brands that you oversee. Just curious, how are you thinking about growth for the brands across the continent or across the region you oversee? How are you thinking about growth? How are you thinking about both from a brand standpoint and obviously from a business standpoint as well?
Well, you're absolutely right. I can't share too much, but I can share, I guess, what I hope for. I hope our brands continue to resonate with consumers. I think we've been very fortunate to have some amazing success stories within our portfolio. But as I said earlier, it's critical that we stay humble, that we stay curious, that we connect with people on the ground, making sure that we're, staying in tune. And I think staying true to what we are, I think that for me is very important to be authentic to what the brand is and not to be faddish, not to jump onto fads, but to really be true to the DNA, what we call the DNA of our brands, and find ways to express that DNA in a way that's relevant to our consumers in the respective markets. And as you said, that's really about tailoring your messaging, tailoring your activities, tailoring your approach market by market. It's not, painting everything with the same paintbrush. And often people talk about Africa, and I have to, explain to people like Africa is not a country. Like within Africa, it's very different market by market. And I think that's very true. And we have to make sure that we treat, it was funny actually. We were talking the other day, and someone said, why do they say Africa and then they call out individual European markets? Like we need to say South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, and it's so true. And it was in another article. But sometimes I think people lump Africa together as, one place, one people, and it's really not the case. So I think making sure that we're really tapping into, as you say, local cultures, local nuances, relying on, real insights to drive our business forward, I think will be critical. And then making sure that we're uh, being purposeful and being precise and concise and directive, and making choices. And to your point, we're going to have to make tough choices sometimes because we can't do
Right.
everything and we can't be everywhere. But that's really what I'm trying to drive with my team, is making sure that we're choosing certain things that we do and making sure we do them great and with a brilliant impact, with luxury finesse, with the attention to detail that our brands deserve.
Okay. All right. I'll take that. I'll take that. I'll take it. I'll take that. I was going to ask as well, kind of along these lines is, um, when you think about different verticals, when you think about different categories,
Yeah.
for example, if you think about CSD as an example, that category to a large extent, you would say price plays a really significant role. It's
Hmm.
almost like part of the entire business or marketing or business strategy.
Hmm.
You couldn't say the same thing for luxury brands, right? Not in the way you'd say it for CSD brands. When you think about financial services, you think about maybe, for example, distribution or personalization of
Hmm.
the experience in that sense. So, when you think
Yeah.
about wines and spirits, what would you say are the critical levers
Mm,
a brand has to pull to have a chance at succeeding?
that's a great question, and we could talk for a long time on that. We might have a follow-up. But I
Wow.
think experiences are key. I personally believe in experiences. I think consumers are hungry for experiences. Consumers are curious. They want to, and it's not only about experiences to tell others about on their social feeds. I think people are genuinely curious to connect, to discover, to learn, and I think that's really key. And I think finding that balance between sharing our what we call our intrinsics, our craftsmanship, our quality, where people are super curious to discover and learn about, sharing our commitment to soils and our sustainability initiatives, but then also giving people an opportunity to just connect human to human, whether it's a New Year's Eve party with Moet and Shandan, or it's a Bold Woman Awards moment to connect like-minded women, or it's a Hennessy MBA partnership experience on the courts that we've just had painted by beautiful artists. I think experiences are critical in our industry, and experiences allow people to really feel the ethos of the brand. So I think for me that's something critical and something that I really look to nurture, will look to nurture and continue to nurture. And that's really where I feel like, the rubber hits the road, right? It's where consumers, they might have seen, heard, you know, witnessed, but then at the point at which they come to an event, come to an experience, that's when they feel what our brands are all about and what our maisons are all about.
Interesting. So experiences, one. I was going to ask you. I think just by sheer observation, and this got nothing to do
Mm,
with my experience
yeah.
in the category or whatever. It appears like a lot of expectations is usually laid on sort of like brand endorsements. I mean, we mentioned the LeBron one just now.
Mm,
I think for other key players within this category have also done similar things, whether at the
hmm
global level or at the regional level.
Yes.
What's your take on using brand endorsements of that nature to really drive whatever the brand objectives are or the business objectives are for luxury brands like yours in the event that any brand wants to go down that road? How would you advise that they navigate that, whether from a standpoint of how you select who you want to select for that, and how you also maybe extract as much value as possible from that partnership as well? Like, just kind of
Mm,
give me your take
yes, of
when it comes
course.
to those kinds of brand endorsements partnership.
I think the answer is actually in your question,
Mm,
which is depending on the brand objective. So you said whatever the brand objectives. Actually, that's the answer. I think you
got
you
it.
choose depending on your objectives, depending on what your business goal is. If you're trying to drive awareness, well, then the role of the celebrity perhaps is to create scale, to create reach, to create more eyeballs on what you're talking about. But if your role is to connect with a certain demographic or a certain consumer or a certain passion point, then you might use someone else. So, for example, if you're wanting to tap into art, working with an artist makes a lot of sense, right? And if
Right.
so I don't think it's a one size fits all. And I think the answer really lies in, well, what are you trying to do and what is your objective and how might a celebrity endorsement facilitate you achieving that goal or achieving that objective? I think it's that way around as opposed to
Mm,
that's an amazing celebrity. Let's work with it. It has to be authentic. There has to be, the
yeah.
LeBron and Hennessy, there's so much connection. There's so much, realness. He loves Hennessy. He was quoted in our press release talking about how much he loves Hennessy. Recently, we just launched another campaign. I'm not sure if you would have seen it yet with Glenmorangie, with Harrison Ford, and he loves Glenmorangie. And so I think it's really also about good fit between the brand and the message you want to deliver and the person. I think for me that's really important is authenticity and the story you want to tell. How might that individual, that person, help tell the story you want to tell and help connect the dots between your message and the consumer receiving it.
Wow. Wow. I'm
Does
curious,
that?
like in your sort of professional experience, um, is there any You know, as you spoke about experiences for wines and spirits, like, is there
Mm.
what are the examples of some of the experiences you've seen outside of Moët Hennessy?
Oh,
And
okay. I was gonna,
it
lots
doesn't
came to
have to
mind.
be
Inside.
it doesn't doesn't have to be within the category,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Yeah, it could be any other luxury goods outside of wines and spirits.
Hmm.
Still within the family, the bigger
Where they've
LVMH
done this
family.
well.
Yeah, where they've done it very well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, actually, as you were talking, what came to mind is Tiffany. I think what Tiffany did was phenomenal, where they roamed around the world with a beautiful launch when they sort of relaunched, if I could say, with the Beyonce campaign. I thought that was just stunning. I don't know if you had a chance to see
Right.
that.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that actually. I saw that.
For me, that was really a great example. It was beautifully crafted. It was experiential. It was, her voice, it was true to, her offering. It felt really authentic. It looked beautiful on her. Just felt like a really good fit. And I think I loved seeing, all the different launch events and how they had these beautiful projection mapping and I mean, again, from afar, I think they did a beautiful job of, relaunching Tiffany when it was taken over by LVMH.
I think that's a very good example actually, because I loved that as well. Actually, I loved that.
Mm,
I was going to ask you about tech. You know, I mean, every marketing conversation today, it's almost, I mean, tech features, right?
mm.
Whether it's AI or any form of tech or whatever features, and I can't help but wonder, like, for you, um, when you think about, the applications of these technologies, whether it's AI or any other thing, um, how how are you looking to leverage that for the work that you
Yeah, it's fascinating, really. I think I keep I'm always amazed if my team comes to me and they share something and it's so quick, quicker than normal. And then they're like, we have to admit we use blah blah blah. And I'm like, that's okay, you're allowed to use, all these different tools. But it's no, I think it's fascinating the speed at which we can do things now that we didn't before. Before we would, ask someone globally for something and now we can just make up a quiz ourselves. If we want to have a little internal quiz about something, we can just ask our internal tool, and it's yeah, no, it's incredible. But I think I see technology as being an enabler. I don't
right?
think it's going to replace, creativity, and I don't see us replacing a beautiful advertising campaign with AI necessarily. But let's see, who knows how it will evolve. But I think there's a role of a stylist and a photographer and a producer. Like they're creative people that, we need that to make the magic, to make it a really beautiful, luxurious campaign. I think those creative people are key. But where I think technology will be an aid for us is in the behind the scenes, in the day-to-day work,
Yeah,
synthesizing things, all of that. I think that's
yeah,
fascinating how we can use it to be a tool for efficiency. But I I I would hope that we don't let it replace the role of creativity. So maybe it can talk more to the science part that I spoke about earlier and less to the
yeah.
art part.
Got
And
it.
again, who knows? Who knows how it will evolve? But as it stands today, I think it's important to see its role for what it can do, but not take away some other things that I really believe the human passion and human creativity is still required. And then I think in terms of marketing itself, I think we're all seeing people get really curious to get off screen sometimes as well, and to
Mm,
genuinely connect face to face. So that's
mm,
really interesting to watch and see how that evolves. In Amsterdam, they have, phone-free connect sessions and cafes that, you're not allowed a laptop and a cell phone to really allow people to connect. And there's a piano and a guitar and some games. And actually, you go to the cafe to unwind and relax, but you know, tech free. And I think that's really fascinating as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves over time, but we have to embrace it and we have to explore how it can be an enabler, but also be conscious of the fact that at the end of the day, as I said, it's about from nature to communities. We're
yeah,
products that are made from the soil, and we need to be with people as well. So I think that's really important.
fantastic. Thank you so much for that. I was just thinking to myself, like, you have had, I mean, you've had a great career because when I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, it was very interesting to just kind of see how you've grown in terms of from this level to the next, from this level to the next. And I can't help but ask you, I mean, at least for those who are listening, probably in the same, industry as you or any other industry, and are curious as to how they can build um, a really successful career. It's like moving from like brand executive or like really junior executive all the way to like this regional CMO role or marketing director role. What would your advice be for any sort of like young person that's listening to this in terms of how to grow their career in the way that you have?
Oh, well, firstly, thank you. It's very, very kind to say like that. You don't often have those moments of just stepping back
You're
and
welcome.
reflecting because you always just keep going. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Um, I think my advice would be to be really clear on, where you want to go and to make hard choices sometimes. Sometimes it's hard choices. So stay the course, decide where you want to go. And sometimes it means saying no to certain opportunities because that's not the end goal, and but just be really clear on where you want to go, be really clear on your values. And I think this is critical. I did a lot of work to really define, what's important to me, what are my values, what environment do I want to be in? What type of leader do I want to be? What type of leader, do I enjoy working for, with? And I think being really clear on that and being able to articulate that as you move up in an organization is really important because it's really all about that at the end of the day. When you start leading people, you have to be able to express, what you need, your vision, your desire, and you have to bring people along with you. So I think being clear on your values, what's important to you, how you envision yourself leading teams. I think that's really important. And then I think, for brand managers out there, I think it's really important to realize that you're responsible for the brand for that chapter, as I said, and you need to be humble and you need to respect the brands that are always going to be bigger than you. And you need to think how you can best nurture the brand in that time. And I always think, what I always tell my team, what chapter do you want to add? You're going to be in this role for maybe 3 years. This is where the brand's at now. This is the stories that have come before you. What do you want to add? What's going to be the title of this chapter? And think about that. So, in year 3, you want to get to this part of the chapter. So how are you going to build up to that? And I think that's really important. I always say start with the end in mind and then work backwards and say this is what good looks like then and what are the stepping stones you need to take to achieve that. And I think that's really important as well because that gives you direction, it gives you focus. Because as a marketer and especially in such an exciting industry, you're thrown with opportunities all the time and you have to be really choiceful and you have to make sure that you know what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And I think someone told me one strategy is just as much choosing what not to do as choosing what to do, and I think that's
Yeah.
also very, very important. Realize that it's not all glamorous. I think, we're very fortunate. It is very glamorous and there's lots of wonderful travel and great experiences. And I mean, gosh, I can think of so many incredible moments watching Beyonce at the Atlantis Royale in Dubai being one of them, meeting Roger Federer. He was an ambassador for Moët and seeing our South African audience attend a brunch and be inspired by his wisdom and his learnings and his kindness and his leadership. So, I mean, there's so many wonderful experiences, but realizing that it also takes hard work, and you have to have resilience. Stamina, I think, is key. And you have to be patient. You have to be patient for the right moments, the right times. But if you stay the course and you are, diligent and humble, I think is also really important. Hopefully, you will be able to achieve what you set out to do. And I think vision is, you know, part of what gets you there. So you have to
Right.
invest time in the vision. I think that would be my advice.
Wow, that's a very good advice. That is a loaded advice. I think what really stuck with me is the point you made about asking yourself what chapter do you want to add to,
Mhm.
recognizing that you're only going to be here for a certain period of time.
Yeah,
What chapter do you want to add to this? I think that's a very remarkable question to always ask when we do have the opportunity to work with these brands instead of
yeah,
I'm curious, like, do you, because as you spoke about, like, it's not always glamorous, You will have days. You will have days where you probably wish you were in a different job or something like that. But I'm just curious for you. Can you talk to me about one of such moments where you felt like, oh my goodness, no, no, this cannot happen now? Like, and how did you sort of navigate that to just to make the best of the situation? Because again, like you said about the kind of brands that you have to work with, and the experiences that you get to have, the temptation is to think that it's all it's all gravy most of the time. So talk to me about one experience that you felt like wow, um, that really hit hard, but thankfully this is kind of how I saw or I moved forward from that.
I think it's really about that kind of um, stamina. It's sometimes
Yeah,
I could be traveling for a week, meeting incredible GMs and F&Bs and sommeliers, in Dubai, and then the next week I'm in Lagos meeting incredible artists and incredible people. But at the same time, you know, the day job still has to happen. So you'll get home at, 12 o'clock and you've got to do emails for a couple of hours to keep things going. And that's sometimes when you're like, whew, you're tired, but at the same time you're energized and inspired. And it's like, so it's really about finding that balance, or one minute I'm on a call with Paris and then next minute I'm at the airport. And, it's really, you're juggling a lot. And I think that can sometimes get tough because you also got to juggle everything else, not just the job.
yeah,
Um, so I would say, yeah, I would say it's important to realize that there's going to be phases, right? And there's going to be
yeah,
a busy phase
absolutely.
and there's going to be a calm phase. And you have to just, again, when you've got a clear vision, you know where you're going, it's just a phase. And if you plan, you can anticipate that. But I think sometimes it can get, some people can find it very tiring because, it's not like retail, I suppose, where it starts at 9 and finishes at 5 because we have the evenings as well. We have the untrade.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
and you'll know that from working in the industry.
absolutely.
So it's not the case, and that's for everyone. It's for our teams on the ground. They're out a lot, and they're busy, and they're active, and and it's wonderful if you're extroverted. You get energy from being out with people, but sometimes you also just need to fill up. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons I had is when you're juggling a lot, when you're hosting amazing people, and you're doing lots of great things, it's amazing, but you have to manage the time when it slows down as well and make
Yeah,
sure you fill up so that you can keep giving. And I think I found a few tools to help me with that to make sure that
that was
after
going
the
to be my
busyness.
next question. Like, so what do you
Okay.
mean switch off? Like, do you switch off? Like, do you? Because I'm getting the feeling like Amy is always on go. Like, so, like, when do you switch off, and when you do,
I do.
what are you doing when you are not working on this amazing brand?
Yeah, so I love nature, I love art, I love wine, of course, and I'm very fortunate to live in South Africa to get to experience some wonderful wineries and just the culinary scene. I think Cape Town was voted top city recently because of the great culinary scene. So I definitely try and unwind in nature. I'm also a big yogi. I'm really enjoying my yoga, and I think that's a really powerful tool to really center yourself and allow you to be really present and really mindful, so that really helps. But I would agree with you. I do love personal development and learning, so I'm constantly learning and reading and staying connected with old colleagues. And yeah, someone recently just wrote a book which was really amazing, an ex-colleague of mine, two ex-colleagues actually. So I like to unwind also by just reading other stories and connecting with their journeys to inspire me as well. So kind of take your head out of the day to day but be inspired by them. And Alistair McQuena, I'm not sure if you've interviewed him, but I definitely
No, I
recommend
haven't.
you
I
interview him.
definitely will.
Ah,
Definitely will.
so I'm busy reading his book at the moment, and it's incredible and very, very inspiring.
Fantastic. So I've got two more questions for you as we wind this down.
Okay.
The first one is, you know, what what would be your advice? What would you say to 15-year-old Amy?
Goodness, what would I say? I would probably say enjoy the journey at that stage a little more. I think I was very serious during those formative years,
Oh
which,
my God,
it
the
has its
way you said that,
upsides, right?
the way you said that, like I was very serious.
No, but what's the word? Conscientious. And
Got you.
I think
Absolutely.
I was very conscientious and very studious, which it's great. And but I think it's important to also enjoy those years. I remember friends saying, "Oh, I can't wait till we finish school. I can't wait till we finish university, because then it'll just be 9 to 5." And it's not really the case. So
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah,
it's.
yeah,
I'm sure you relate. So I think
yeah,
it's important to enjoy those years, and really make the most of them, not at the expense of your academics, because of course
absolutely.
that plays a big role. But just finding that balance. But I definitely, some of my highlights were the travels I did, with friends and students. We all saved up together independently with different ways, and that holiday in particular that I can think of was really a highlight. And I almost wish I did more of that in those long holidays you get in the university
Yeah,
holidays. So maybe not
yeah,
15, but university.
yeah.
But fortunately, I've been able to make up for those great party moments in my
Right,
career. So
right.
that's a good thing. But yeah, I think it's interesting when I speak to colleagues or my peers. It's often something we reflect on. It's like, gosh, we thought it was tough then. But actually, it's good. It's good to enjoy those years. So I would probably say that. And yeah, but it's hindsight, right? And you can only see those
Yeah,
things now. And maybe my
yeah,
advice would be different had I had a different approach. So
yeah.
I think it's
I was talking to in my conversation with Crew Governor,
yes.
and she, when I asked her the same question, one of the things she said was, she would say to her 15-year-old self, take more risks,
Oh,
make
I love
more,
that as well.
make more mistakes, and for her
Yep.
as well, kind of similar to what you were saying, is that she was kind of like this tunnel vision
Mm,
type stuff.
yep.
So it's exciting to hear, from women at the level that you guys are at in terms of your career, at least professionally, to say these things. And I hope that everyone who's listening, hopefully, has been able to take away one or two germs, both personally and professionally as well. Thank you very much, Aimee. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
This felt like, just having a laid back conversation. Just it feels like the kind of conversation you can continue having for another hour or so.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's been great. Thank you for
Yeah,
your time and your interest.
yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Any final words? Any final whatever for us?
No, I just think thank you to you. I think it's such an amazing platform, and when you approached me a couple of months ago now
Yeah,
to contribute to it, and I really started to listen to the episodes, and I found it really inspiring. So I hope I've been able to contribute for your audience, and look forward to connecting again in the future.
thank you very much, Aimee. Thank you for saying yes and accepting the invitation. I deeply enjoyed this episode, and I'll also be in touch. And thank you very much.
Don't forget to let us know next time you're in Paris, because maybe this
I
time we
am,
can go to
I am,
Champagne.
Amy, Amy, listen to me. I am definitely going to hold you to that. I promise
Yeah,
you, I'm
absolutely.
going to
You've
hold you
got
to
my
that.
email
I'm
address
going to
now.
hold you to that. And
I'd
when
love
I get
that.
off this podcast now, I'm going to tell my wife because she has a thing for remembering these kinds of things. Now, babe, you
Yeah.
said, Amy, one of the guests said that we should call. I am so sure once I tell
Brilliant.
her,
So
you'll
we
never
can count
forget
on
it.
her.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Amy, and have
Thank
a
you so much for your
wonderful evening.
time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
You
Thank you
too.
very much,
Bye.
guys, for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode. See you at work.